of lives and needless model ranch fund was going to start in about a week's time, starting with Plateau and Nasarawa, and that 22 governors had indicated interest with applications. All right, and there were some guidelines that they were to uh, work with and also prepare to be able to get this fund. Now we know this National Livestock Transformation initiative has had a checkered history. If you remember, there was a time the federal government came out with cattle colonies.
Yes.
Nigerians went up in protest and it was pushed back. Then there was the attempt of Ruga. Ruga was supposed to be another form of cattle colony
Some people
within
have
the
said that this
states.
is Ruga in disguise.
Yes.
What do you think?
Then they now came out with the NLP.
Mm.
Yes, there are debates, there are mixed views about this because the whole attempt is to settle the nomadic herdsmen
Yeah.
who of mostly are Fulani, right? Now, um, they didn't state the figures exactly how much they'll be giving them, but what they've stated is that a model ranch would cost about 400 million naira, and within a model ranch, the state is expected to train other pastoralists, which is another word for herdsmen,
Mhm.
okay, in how to build ranches and operate ranches. They would operate their ranches. They would no longer be grazing openly or following routes or moving from one location to the other. Now, the some of the different views come from different aspects. Apart from the fact that the federal government is working with the Dutch partners on this, some
Mhm.
debate that the NLTP is a Druga in disguise.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, and what I'll quickly say to that is, unfortunately, the federal government has not done too well in its communication of the National Livestock Transformation Plan. I think I've had a glimpse of that plan. It was developed by Nigerians, both locally and in the diaspora. A lot of thinking literally went into the National Livestock Transformation Plan. My question is, you had such a glowing white paper. How come you haven't brought it out? How come
Yeah.
you haven't gone downtown, knowing that this is what is causing the fracas among tribes, among religions? Why not make this your communication agenda and let's know that this issue of open grazing is going to be dealt with effectively. So
Absolutely. All right.
that's why some would see it as a two. Some see the Ruga, as you mentioned
Yeah.
before, which is not as a form of land grab. That why should the federal government be putting hand in private business?
Yeah.
Enugu State has lifted that issue up. Not
Mhm.
every state applied for this.
Yeah.
Oyo State said no, they won't be making any land available for grazing because there are so many states that have also signed up to the anti-open grazing laws,
Yeah.
especially in the southern parts of Nigeria. Delta states have said that no, this will not be given a way forward, that herders should buy the land if they want to come into
Thank
their
you very
space.
much, Devo. Princess, I don't see any problem if government provides funding for ranches, just like government has provided fundings in the past for sectors like rice farmers, poultry, banks, bailouts, manufacturing, and others. The issue for me is proper implementation to address the purpose of setting up the ranches. Yinka says in 2014, GEG approved the sum of 100 billion naira for Ruga. What happened to that money? Was it released? Was it not? Was it duly utilized? Was there an audit? And now this NLTP, you can't run a company like this, let alone a country. Yeah, some people are when Akomo sent earlier on that they believe that it's going to be they're not going to account for it and it might not be used for what it's been set out for.
Mm.
But let's keep our eye on this one, shall we? PenCom to prosecute defaulting employers recover or recovers 19.29 billion naira unremitted pensions from the Punch newspaper. The National Pension Commission says it has recovered 19.29 billion naira monthly pensions deducted by employers from employees' monthly emolument, but not remitted to the retirement savings account with their respective pension fund administrators. Luckily, this is unfortunate, and I'm glad that this is not the government we're talking about. These are organizations mainly run by private individuals. Later on, would say that, oh, the government is corrupt. You and me, let's check inside. But please take us to the story.
Let me start by saying that those of us whose deductions get remitted on a monthly basis, um, maybe this story will let us appreciate what our employers are doing.
Absolutely.
And we need to give kudos to them for religiously doing what is doing the needful for us on this. Now, so a bit of the story for me is that the story says this amount is about 17.52 billion from inception. That's actually the total amount that's been that's recovered. That means that since 2005 to date, that's the amount that's been recovered. That's over a 16-year period, right? And then the penalties on it is about 8.63 billion, which makes it the about 25 billion in total that's been recovered.
Yeah.
Okay, so our government and its agencies involved in this list of defaulters, this report doesn't say so. So I'm assuming that it is everybody. So when PenCom says they are going to prosecute, would they, for example, prosecute XYZ states that has not remitted pensions over a period? How do they intend to prosecute that state? That's one. Two, it would also be nice if PenCom would list the reasons for the default by these organizations. We know what has happened over time. There are organizations who just went bust. They were struggling to pay salaries and they had options. Okay, let me be warehousing your deductions until I'm able to. I'll keep paying your salary.
Where?
They deduct, but they don't remit because they don't have enough funds to pay.
So so they're deducting the money to use it to pay you back, essentially.
Somehow, you know, the option they probably would have is, do I do this or do I sack people? Yeah, no, so that's why I said it would be nice to know the reasons why organizations are defaulting. Yeah. So I'm not making any excuses.
You are.
I'm not. I'm just saying that is the reality. That is what it is. People, for example, in the last 2 years, the organizations that let go of people, there were those who placed their employees on half salaries and so on and so forth. In all of this, that would have been a good excuse for such organizations to say that, look, I wasn't making money enough to even pay full salaries, and you expect that I'll be able to do pension remittances.
So the challenge is, so pension is a contributory scheme. You contribute a certain percentage, your employer contributes as well. It's one thing to say that the employer doesn't make their own contribution because they don't have money. But if you're telling me that you deducted money from the salary of a member of staff and you're saying that it's for pensions and you don't remit, is that not fraud?
I agree with. I'm saying that's I started with saying it would be nice to know the reasons. I just posited a position to say, look, this is a possible excuse. It may not be valid anyway, but it is there on the table that might be a reason, So it is there for us to note that, and then of course, there's nothing else to say. But it would be nice to see what happens. Let's see people get prosecuted. If you cannot advance a good reason for defaulting, because it is the law. Because it's the law to remit these things. And if you can't, that means you have defaulted to a law and you should be punished. It would be nice to see those people get punished for it.
Absolutely. The reason I'm saying this is because we always give excuses. Let me use that word for bad behavior in Nigeria. There's always a reason why you shouldn't do certain things. Why did you steal? I was hungry, I was poor. There's always a reason. Do you understand? The only thing is that whatever the reason is, this is the law. Do you understand? It's the law. You have to remit. And one thing we need to do is to educate employers, to let them know that you're you're going against the law when you don't remit deductions from your staff.
Yeah.
So that's what I just wanted to establish, because a number of employers, especially small employers, small business employers, would give this excuse: if you're not going to remit, don't deduct, and then know that, okay, you are going foul of the law completely. But when you deduct from a person, from your staff, with the intention, in quotes, with telling them that you're using it for pensions, and you don't do that, that's fraudulent.
So now, punishing some people for it would also give those who intend to or may plan to in future to understand what about, like you said, if we keep allowing these excuses, no matter how valid they may seem to be, if we keep allowing it to persist, we will somebody will end up retiring and there will be no
There's
money for the
nothing.
person to earn.
Or you haven't earned interest at all. So they'll say
Yeah.
that, oh, when you're leaving, we'll pay you bulk payment. But how about the interest that could, I mean,
That
look
would
like
have
here,
accrued
that have
over
accrued.
over the period, yes.
Anyways, Vincent from Oshogbo, all the way from Oshogbo, had to send a comment. He said, about the deductions not remitted, I'm still writing to my former company to remit 20 months deductions. And it's not just me, but all who joined since 2019.
It should not just write to the company, it should report to PenCom, name the full details of the organization with evidences that the deductions were not remitted.
I would
Simple.
state that he doesn't need to even write to PenCom. Just talk to your pension fund administrator. They will act on your behalf to work with your employers and enforce
That's
it.
brilliant. We need to talk about this more during Lagos Talks. So some people are sending messages of their own experiences. It's not funny at all. Time from Kikorodi says, my employer has not remitted since 2016, but every month takes away millions from the company for personal use. They have now taken to making all new employees contracts just to avoid paying their portion of pension. The money is there, but they are just wicked.
Just report them to your own pension fund administrator. They will do it for you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Divo, power, port transportation, port facilities killing Nigeria's manufacturers, says the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akiwumi Adeshino. He says that about $29 billion is lost annually due to poor power supply in Nigeria. Poor power supply alone. How much is lost to port transportation, port facilities, and the likes?
If he did the math, I'm sure we would all faint. That's Nigeria's budget there, actually, what we could have made back. And unfortunately, we're hearing what we already know. Thank God we're hearing it from one of our own, because if it came from a francophone person telling us what we already know, it would have bitten us somehow. But the truth is, there's no gainsaying, it can't be stressed enough. And here he has broken it down ever so simply again, and the simple way of saying this is, Nigeria does not have an enabling environment, okay? And what are the three ingredients for national economic boosting? Power, electricity. We all know the gains and advantages of it. And here he was referring and talking to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, okay, that who we refer to as the real sector. He spoke about there was very bad and weak transportation facilities, and there was also very bad and weak port facilities. These three make up what we refer to the supply chain. Now, the supply chain literally is the economy. And I've told people before, economy is not just about a few people being rich, which is Nigeria's problem, because it's not as if Nigeria doesn't have funds, and we're referring to both public and private sector. But the bulk of funds that Nigeria has, all the money we hear of, is in the hands of a few people. So there's gross, critical, chronic inequality. A few people, let's say within 5% of the 200 million, which is 5% of 200 million, that's about 5%
of 300 million.
200 million.
260 million. Sorry, I think my math is about to
No.
Either 600,000 or
yes,
600.
literally, we're talking about 2 million people have all the money that Nigeria has, and that's too few amongst the plenty. And the way the economy works is, as long as money is in motion, as long as goods, people are buying and people are selling, things are moving. But in this case, all the ingredients that would make for swift and continuous buying and selling, not just to locals but exporting, that is very challenged. Now, he also mentioned that our exports, okay, that's what Nigeria produces and sends outside to collect FX, make up 3% of the national revenue, whereas imports, manufactured imports, make up 50%. So literally, which we've already know, we're an import high nation,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, we really don't push anything out there. So the question is, how can you make money? Oil cannot be the only aspect. Literally, apart from oil, oil is meant to generate and give us the advantage
Yeah.
so that we will have the infrastructure, the power, the transport, and the port facilities to be able to push out so much to foreign nations. Now, there are countries who have no natural resources in terms of human beings or even solid minerals. Yet those countries are in billions simply because they've been able to produce, get their power rights, get their transportation rights, and also their port facilities. Now we're talking about countries like in North Africa, Asian countries, even the Netherlands, etc. and co.
Yeah.
Now he said that the current initiative whereby we use import substitution is not sustainable. And import substitution is a means of trying to help local manufacturers grow by blocking the importation of some types of foreign goods, or by making it difficult by introducing high duties and exercises just to ensure that they don't come in. But what we've seen in Nigeria is the ironic situation whereby, let me give you an example.
Yes.
How is it that Nigeria imports more champagne than all the rich nations in the world?
Mm-hmm.
As they say, even on top of the fact that champagne was put on the luxury list and given high exercise duty, yet the import has not reduced. It has even doubled and tripled. So there's something wrong with the country.
No.
Therefore, this is where the solution lies.
All right.
If we're going into the next administration, I would ask people to connect whoever's asking to lead this nation and ask them, how do you intend to deliver power, transport, and port facility? These
you.
three alone, and Nigeria's days of woes will change.
Thank you so very much. Well broken down. And thanks to all the mathematicians who sent me the answer. I don't know, I was 5% of 200 million is 10 million.
10 million.
10 million. Thank you
Please,
very much.
$2 billion to them.
All right, $2 billion to you. Okay, so Shai from Lukoju says this week alone there has been no power since Monday. For Ikeja Power Electric to come out and say there would be an 8-week disruption from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. says it all. What's left to be done as a productive enterprise when all your productive hours is wiped out like this? No one wants us to get out of poverty, he says. There was a comment that came in earlier that I'd like to share. Okay, maybe I'll come back to that later. Let's go on to our next story. Like when they sit at home, and I'm okay, right? This one was we're taking that earlier. So let's go now. I'll come to you, Divo, for the next story. Let me take that one. Yeah, let me just take that. So we have here that safe schools. Yes, over 12 million children traumatized, afraid to go to school, says Buhari. He was saying this at the summit where he is currently. Please take us through the story.
Let me just start by saying this is shameful, and I'll try not to use as many disappointing words as possible. But let me just use the word shameful, that a government will resign in its like this to non-state actors. Okay, so you have IPOP say people.
Yeah.
So you have a group say you can't go out on a certain day.
Yeah.
And then government that is supposed to be.
Yeah, all right. So we'll touch on that very shortly, but let me come to our next story here, because for the 12 million out of school children, it's just stating the obvious. The president made this known and just calling about us being safe schools, and just in terms of safe schools, despite the insecurity in the north at the moment. Divo, I'll come to you for the next story. And that is on the National Assembly backing mandatory vaccination for public workers. In the Punch newspaper, the National Assembly has expressed its support for the planned mandatory COVID-19 vaccination of public workers in the federal and state civil service. The chairman of the Senate Committee on Primary Healthcare and Communicable Diseases, Chukwuka Utazi, told the Punch correspondent in an interview in Abuja on Tuesday that the directive had the full backing of the federal parliament.
Yes, the National Assembly is in support of the vaccine mandate. All right, they made some debate and resolutions on that, and basically this covers all public workers, federal and state. So that's literally everyone. I hope local government was included there, because they're people too. Now, they said they would do everything possible to ensure that no one in Nigeria rejects vaccination. The truth is that's a tall order. and I have not heard their persuasion plan that they're putting in place. Because how do you intend to ensure that no Nigerian rejects vaccination when we know vaccine refusal, resistance, and hesitancy is on the high in the country? Now, there are debates for vaccine mandates, okay? Because a few states did put it in place, starting with Edo State, and I think Lagos also initially said they would also put it in place, but they gave a date for it. I think that was for December, that state civil servants would not be able to enter the premises without the taking the vaccine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the COVID-19 vaccination. I think currently they're encouraging people to take the Moderna, which is available. Now, the NLC has been urging for persuasion and not enforcement. As you know, in Edo State, when they started mid-September with the enforcement, a lot of people were turned back from their offices. Now, some lawyers, especially from the NBA, have threatened a fundamental civil rights violation suit if the federal government or some of the states intend to enforce it on their civil servants, because they believe it should be a pro-choice option, that every individual or every citizen has the right to say yes or no. Now, this is where the vaccine hesitancy, resistance, and refusal comes to play, because it's a journey. It's not the first time vaccines are being given in Nigeria. It's not the first time we've had issues. Like I always used to mention, it took the Bill Gates Foundation, and I think the Dangote Foundation came in after, to even go financial to get some of the states up north to take the polio vaccination, because Nigeria was one of the last states that still had polio within, and it took years, because they had a traditional belief that the polio vaccination was being delivered to exterminate them.
Yeah.
All right, but at the end of the day, it was achieved, and now we're celebrating. So the argument for vaccine mandate really needs to take a soft pedal.
Yeah.
And the first things is are first. One, have you made it available? Is the federal government and the states should be buying beyond waiting for donor agencies.
Yeah.
Secondly, is it accessible? Can I get it everywhere without stress? And I don't think that's the situation at the moment. So in the meantime, they should encourage and drive the NPIs,
Yes.
the non-pharmaceutical initiatives, which is get tested regularly, wash your hands with warm water and soap, and as we all know, the almighty sanitizer. Use it as often, wear your face mask in public gatherings, and maintain social distancing.
Thank you very much. We have a number of comments which I think would carry over to Lagos Talks 981. Fabian from Ekwe says, I are similar to the first part of yesterday's stories. We again see issues following a lack of accountability. When will this recurring decimal end? On YouTube, we also have Jerry from another perspective says, cash and cash, going back to the pension story, cash and cash flow are two different things. You can deduct the salaries, but wouldn't have the actual cash to pay. Thank you very much. Vincent also on YouTube says, I'm a victim. My last company is still owing me 20 months. Okay, so that's the one. He says that they've been doing it to as many people who have joined since 2019. We'll take two more stories. We'll round off and then we'll go on to Lagos Talks at 8:10 when I'll read more comments and take phone calls. Federal government won't allow us deal with insecurity in Plateau. Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State statement yesterday, expressing his frustration with the federal government in failing to stop the killings in his state and refusing to allow him deal decisively with the situation, even after investing in equipment that can change the tide. This is an interesting statement, Lakuni. The reason I'm saying this is because yesterday we talked about the IPOP situation and what governors can do despite the fact that they don't control the security apparatus fully, since it's at the center, at the federal government level. What can they do? Some people said, no, their hands are tied. So it's interesting to see a governor make this kind of statement. Please break this down to us, what he means by the federal government frustrating their efforts.
Well, by structure, the governor is supposed to be closer to the people than the federal government. The state government is supposed to be closer to the people than the state government. The federal government, sorry. So it means that he should know what the problems are, and he should be able to, other than the forced solution, should be able to find other means of solving the problems. Okay, so he made this statement at a Nigerian Economic Summit, yeah, and I think that much more of this comment would have been some form of grandstanding, if you ask me, because when this thing started, maybe he was not even the governor. He knew that this problem was on ground as he became governor. Did he have what plan did he have in his manifesto or in his plan to be governor of that state to solve that problem? Did he discuss that at any level? Did he bring the warring parties to the table to have a discussion around how to solve the problem? Much more of the troubles we have in Plateau State particularly are things that can be discussed. You don't necessarily need force, military force, to solve them. Much of the problem in Plateau is ethnic. You find that one group attacks the other goes to the group and attacks the next one, and so on and so forth. So these are things that is closer to the local government chairman. The local government chairman are in control of the traditional rulers. If you bring all of these people to the table and you clear this, in this statement is saying they are acquiring weapons for who? The police that is not in control of, or is it the military is acquiring drones for what exactly? Are we looking at, why do we wait till a problem degenerates beyond control before we now try to solve them?
Yeah.
We know this thing happens almost on a daily basis in this place. There are other solutions that can be used. We all also know that every war, when it ends, or rather when it is suspended, everybody goes to the table to go and discuss.
Yeah.
So why don't we just go to the table and discuss these things? It might even be cheaper for them to do than involving the government. The federal government has its own blames in all of this.
Yeah.
But for this statement by the governor, I think that rather than for him to come and say this, he should go his way by what the constitution has empowered him to be able to do as governor of a state. Get the problem solved and stop blaming somebody else. He's the chief secretary of that state, and the solving this problem may not necessarily need force, and everybody knows that. And what is really the issue there is a matter of land, control of land, control of resource. Now, this is probably now hitting Plateau State much more than they may have imagined.
Yeah.
Plateau is supposed to be one of our food baskets.
Yeah.
And so if this problem persists in that place, the whole country will suffer for it. And we appeal to the governor to use what he has within his means of control to attempt to start finding a solution to this problem.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are totally out of time, but I'm glad and grateful that we have more opportunities in the following segments during Lagos Talks 981 to discuss further. I see some comments. A number of people have sent in their thoughts and even personal experiences with the pension story. I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about that at 8:10 a.m. A big thanks to our analysts for today. Thank you, Lakunle Yusuf at Lakunle70 and Divo Okore at Divo Okore on social media. We are at Smooth 981 and on YouTube, search for Smooth 981 FM Lagos. I'm Ayo Myro Essay. We'll have Lagos Talks up next. All right.
Wish I could stay for that.
I know. I was going to say yesterday we had a good conversation. We had a good conversation around, what was the main story of? It was this iPod. Part of it was the iPod story.
Yeah, I kind of call. Your stories at the end were disappeared.